In the quiet heart of the Vale of Lumina, where the ancient mountains cradled the land like a sleeping giant, lived a sound. It wasn't the rustle of leaves, though the forests hummed with them, nor the murmur of the river, though it sang its endless song. It was something deeper, older, a soft, resonant thrum that lived beneath the surface of all things. It was called the Whisper. The whisper was the world's quiet breath, the invisible thread that wove the tapestry of life. It spoke to the roots of the ancient star-willow trees, guiding their growth towards the moon's soft glow. It resonated in the feathers of the sky swallows, helping them navigate the winding currents of the air. And it danced in the hearts of the Lumina folk, filling their lives with an unspoken understanding, a gentle magic that made their valley a haven of peace and vibrant life. Most people in Lumina heard the whisper as a background hum, a comforting presence. But Ilara, with her hair the color of twilight and eyes that held the deep blue of mountain lakes, heard it differently. She heard its nuances, its gentle sighs, its joyous trills. To her, the whisper was a language, a constant, low-voiced conversation between the world and all its inhabitants. She knew when the ancient stones of the sunken glade longed for rain, or when the shy moss bunnies were feeling particularly playful. She could almost taste the fear of a sapling when a sudden storm brewed, or the contentment of the river when it finally spilled into the great, shimmering lake. Ilara lived in a small, cozy cottage at the edge of the whispering woods, where the star willows grew their tallest, their branches reaching for the stars like 1,000 welcoming arms. Her days were spent helping her Nana Lyra tend their sun-petal garden, or gathering shimmering moonberries from the forest's shadowed groves. She loved the feel of the earth beneath her bare feet, the soft, cool touch of moss, the rough bark of a tree that pulsed with the whisper's energy. But lately, something had changed. The whisper, usually a rich, vibrant symphony, had begun to falter. It was subtle at first, like a single string falling out of tune in a grand orchestra. A note here, a harmony there, replaced by a strange, unsettling quiet. The first sign was the star willows. Their leaves, which usually shimmered with an inner light, had dulled. Their branches, once reaching so eagerly, now seemed to droop with a heavy sorrow. Ilara would sit beneath them, pressing her ear to their ancient trunks, and instead of the usual deep, resonant hum, she would hear only a faint, almost fearful tremor. Then came the other changes. The sun-petal flowers in Nana Lyra's garden, usually so vibrant, began to lose their brilliant hues, their petals curling slightly at the edges. The sky swallows, who always wove intricate patterns in the air, seemed disoriented, their flights less graceful, more hesitant. Even the river, which flowed with such joyful abandon, seemed to move with a sluggish reluctance, its song a little less bright. Ilara felt the change most acutely in her own heart. The whisper was part of her, a comforting presence that had always guided her thoughts and soothed her spirit. Now there were moments of sudden profound silence within her, empty spaces where the whisper used to be. It felt like a chill wind blowing through a once warm room. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of lavender and rose, Ilara sat on the doorstep of their cottage, a half-woven basket of moonberries forgotten in her lap. The air felt heavy, the usual comforting hum replaced by an unnerving stillness. She could almost hear the silence, a new, unwelcome sound in the Vale of Lumina. Nana Lyra, with her silver hair braided into a coronet and her hands gnarled from years of tending the earth, came out and sat beside her. Her eyes, though ancient, were still sharp, missing nothing. "The whisper is ailing, isn't it, child?" Nana Lyra said, her voice soft as velvet. She didn't need Ilara to tell her. The whisper spoke to all the Lumina folk, even if not with Ilara's clarity. Ilara nodded, a knot forming in her stomach. "It's quieter, Nana, so much quieter, and sometimes it feels like it's trying to say something, but the sound gets caught, like a breath held too long." Nana Lyra sighed, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of years. She picked up a fallen sun petal, its edges already browning. "The whisper is the lifeblood of our valley, Ilara. It is the magic woven into the very fabric of our existence. If it fades, so too will the vibrancy of Lumina. The plants will forget how to bloom, the waters how to flow, and even our own hearts will grow dim." "Why is it fading, Nana?" Ilara asked, her voice barely above a whisper herself. Has it ever happened before? Nana Lyra's gaze drifted towards the farthest peak of the Dragon's Tooth Mountains, their jagged silhouettes sharp against the fading sky. Long, long ago, the oldest stories say, the whisper once fell silent. It was a time of great darkness, when the colors of the world dulled to gray, and even laughter forgot its way. The Lumina folk called it the Great Stillness. Elara shivered. The thought of a world without the whisper, without its constant, comforting presence, was terrifying. How was it brought back? She asked, clutching at the hope in Nana Lyra's words. The stories are fragmented, child, Nana Lyra replied, her voice tinged with melancholy. They speak of a song, a forgotten melody, woven from the purest intentions and the deepest love for Lumina. A song sung by one who could hear the whisper's truest heart, and was brave enough to seek its source. Elara looked down at her hands, her fingers tracing the patterns on the basket. One who could hear the whisper's truest heart. She knew, deep down, that Nana Lyra was looking at her. She had always been the one who heard it most clearly. The whisper doesn't just fade, Elara, Nana Lyra continued, her eyes now fixed on Elara's. It is either forgotten, or it is silenced. There are forces in the world that do not wish for the harmony the whisper brings. Forces that seek to twist its song for their own ends, or to snuff it out entirely. Elara's mind raced. Silenced. What could silence something as vast and pervasive as the whisper? Where would I even begin to look, Nana? She asked, her voice trembling slightly with a mixture of fear and burgeoning determination. Nana Lyra reached out and gently squeezed Elara's hand. Her touch was warm, reassuring. The whisper, even in its ailing, still calls to those who listen. It will guide you. But there is one place, a place of ancient power, where the whisper's roots run deepest. A place that has always been protected by its strongest song. Elara knew the place. Every child in Lumina was warned about it, in hushed tones. The sunken glade. It was a forgotten corner of the whispering woods, deeper than any regular path ventured, where the very trees seemed to lean in, listening. Legend said it was where the first star willow had taken root, where the whisper itself had first hummed its song into existence. It was also said to be a place of potent, untamed magic, both beautiful and dangerous. The sunken glade? Elara breathed, her eyes wide. But no one goes there. It's forbidden. Forbidden out of respect, child, and caution, Nana Lyra corrected gently. Not out of malice. The glade is a threshold. It holds the whisper's beginning, and perhaps its answer. If the whisper is being silenced, the source of that silencing would surely be close to its heart. A flicker of courage ignited in Elara's chest, chasing away some of the fear. She thought of the drooping star willows, the fading flowers, the quiet river. She thought of the dullness in her own heart. She couldn't let the great stillness return. I will go, she declared, her voice firmer now. Nana Lyra smiled, a soft, knowing smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. I knew you would, my little listener, but you must not go unprepared. The path to the sunken glade is not just through tangled roots and shadowed trees. It is through the whisper itself. You must listen with more than your ears, Elara. Listen with your heart, your spirit, your very soul. The next morning, before the sun had even painted the eastern sky with its first blush, Elara was ready. She wore her sturdiest leather boots, a tunic woven from star willow fibers that shimmered faintly, and a small pouch containing a handful of moonberries for sustenance. Nana Lyra pressed a small smooth riverstone into her hand. It glowed with a faint internal light. This is a fragment of the whisper stone, from the ancient depths of the riverbed, Nana Lyra explained. It will resonate with the whisper, even when it is weak. It will hum softly when you are close to its true path, and pulse strongly if you are near its heart. Let it be your guide, child. Elara clutched the stone, its warmth, a comforting presence against her palm. She embraced Nana Lyra tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of earth and sun petals. Be safe, Elara, Nana Lyra whispered, her voice thick with emotion. And remember, the whisper is not just a sound. It is hope, it is connection, and it is resilient. Seek its resilience. With a deep breath, Elara stepped into the whispering woods. The usual symphony of morning sounds was subdued. The birds sang in hesitant chirps, the leaves rustled with a dry, almost desperate sound. The air was heavy, charged with the peculiar quiet that had settled over Lumina. She followed the familiar deer paths at first, her senses alert. The river stone in her hand remained cool, a steady weight. She tried to listen for the whisper, straining her ears, but it was like trying to catch mist in a sieve. It was there, she knew, but fragmented, scattered, like echoes bouncing off distant walls. As she delved deeper, the familiar paths gave way to denser undergrowth. The trees grew taller, closer, their branches interwoven to form a canopy that filtered the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth and ancient wood. Elara paused, closing her eyes. She focused, not on sound, but on feeling. She reached out with her mind, with that part of her that had always connected to the whisper. It was like casting a net into murky water, hoping to catch something. And then, a faint tremor. Not a sound, but a sensation, a subtle vibration in the air, a whisper of a whisper. It was almost imperceptible, like the flutter of a moth's wings in the darkest night. It pulsed weakly, coming from her left. She opened her eyes, excitement stirring in her chest. The river stone in her hand had warmed ever so slightly. It was working. The whisper, even in its weakened state, was still reaching out. She pushed through a thicket of thorny brambles, careful to avoid their sharp barbs. The path grew less defined, the trees more gnarled and ancient. Their roots snaked across the forest floor like sleeping serpents. The tremor grew stronger, a faint, high-pitched hum that seemed to resonate in the very bones of the trees. The river stone in her hand now pulsed with a gentle, steady rhythm, growing warmer with each step. She knew she was close to the forbidden parts of the woods, the parts that led to the sunken glade. The air here felt different, denser, imbued with a strange, heavy stillness that pressed in on her. The sounds of the normal forest faded behind her, replaced by a profound quiet, broken only by the increasing hum of the whisperstone and the soft thud of her own heart. Then, she saw it. An opening in the dense wall of trees, not a path carved by feet, but a natural archway formed by two enormous ancient star willows, their trunks thick as small cottages. Their branches, however, were entirely bare, devoid of the usual shimmering leaves. They looked like skeletal arms reaching towards a bleak sky. Beyond the archway, the light changed. It wasn't darker, but rather muted, as if all the colors had been softened, drained of their vibrancy. The ground was covered in a thick carpet of grayish-green moss, and the trees within this section of the woods were silent. Utterly, profoundly silent. Elara stepped through the archway, the whisper stone now throbbing with a distinct warmth in her hand. The moment she crossed the threshold, the world around her seemed to hold its breath. The hum that had guided her vanished. Here, there was only silence. Not the peaceful quiet of a sleeping forest, but an unnatural, oppressive stillness that felt like a scream frozen in time. It was as if the very air had forgotten how to move, the leaves how to rustle, the earth how to breathe. She looked around, her heart thumping against her ribs. This was the sunken glade, and it was terrifying. The ancient trees, some of them impossibly vast, stood like petrified giants, their bark rough and gnarled, their branches reaching for a sky that seemed to refuse to acknowledge them. No birds sang here, no insects buzzed. The moss underfoot was unnaturally soft, muffling her every step. The whisperstone in her hand pulsed erratically now, its light dimming and brightening like a struggling heartbeat. It was reacting to the profound silence, struggling against it. Elara walked deeper, her eyes scanning the desolate landscape. The silence pressed in on her, a physical weight. She felt a profound sadness emanating from the very ground, a grief so deep it made her own eyes prickle. This was the source, she realized. This was where the whisper was being silenced. As she moved further into the glade, she noticed something else. In the center of the clearing, where the tallest and most ancient of the star willows should have stood, there was an empty space. A massive circular depression in the earth, as if something enormous had been torn out of the ground. And in the very center of this depression, rising from the earth like a jagged obsidian tooth, was a shard of something dark and ancient. It was about the height of Elara herself, and it hummed with a low, dissonant vibration that seemed to absorb all sound, all light, all life around it. It was utterly black, absorbing the faint light of the glade, making the shadows around it seem even deeper, colder. The whisper stone in Ilara's hand flared with an angry, desperate light, then suddenly went cold, its glow extinguished. It felt like a tiny heart that had given its last beat. Ilara stared at the obsidian shard, a chill spreading through her veins that had nothing to do with the cold air. This was it. This was the source of the great stillness. This was what was silencing the whisper. And it felt ancient, malevolent, and terribly powerful. She took a step closer, drawn by a morbid curiosity, by the desperate need to understand. The silence around the shard was so absolute, it was deafening. It felt like a void, an absence of everything good and vibrant. As she stood before it, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer rippled across the surface of the obsidian. And within that shimmer, Ilara thought she saw a fleeting image, a flicker of something ancient and terrible. A shadow, not of a form, but of a presence, a watchful, hungry emptiness that seemed to stir within the depths of the black stone. A whisper of fear, cold and sharp, pierced through the silence in her mind. But beneath it, another whisper, faint and desperate, pushed through the crushing stillness. It was the whisper struggling, calling out from beyond the void. It was not a message of despair, but a plea. A plea for a song. A plea for light. A plea for someone to remember its true voice. Ilara knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that she had found the heart of the problem. And whatever this dark shard was, it was only the beginning. The revelation hit her like a silent gong, reverberating not with sound, but with an echo of profound truth. Her fingers, still resting on the polished surface of the moon harp, trembled. The silence in her mind had been a shroud, but now, a thread of light, woven from the whisper's desperate plea, pierced through it. Gao zong dai a song. Light. Remember, its true voice. She was a musician, a weaver of song, born with an innate attunement to the subtle melodies that hummed beneath the surface of the world. In her quiet chamber, lit by the pale watchful glow of the twin moons, she had often sought solace in the complex harmonies of Ethel, the world itself. But for weeks, those harmonies had been fading, replaced by a creeping, suffocating stillness that even her most intricate compositions couldn't break through. Now she understood why. The whisper was not just a sound. It was the very melody of existence, the vibrant, flowing song that held the threads of Athel together. It was the rustle of leaves, the laughter of rivers, the shimmer of starlight, the beating of every heart. And it was dying, smothered by this malignant shard. Ilara closed her eyes, drawing a deep, steadying breath. Her own song, a simple, hopeful tune she'd hummed since childhood, stirred within her. She tried to project it, to send it forth as a beacon to the struggling whisper. But the moment the first note formed on her lips, it felt brittle, thin, like a single candle flame fighting a gale. It barely reached beyond the confines of her own mind, let alone across the vast internal void where the whisper fought for its life. This wasn't a problem that could be solved with a simple melody, no matter how pure. This required a deeper understanding, an unraveling of the silence itself. The dark shard, the void, the whisper's true voice. She needed answers, and she needed them quickly. The world outside her chamber, though not yet entirely silent, felt muted. Colors seemed duller, laughter less bright, the very air a little thinner. This was the work of the shard, gradually stealing the essence of Ethel. Her gaze drifted to a shelf laden with ancient scrolls and leather-bound tomes illuminated by the moons. Among them was a book, its spine worn smooth with age, titled Geckos of the First Songin. Her grandmother, a renowned lore-keeper and a weaver of song before her, had often spoken of it, though Ilara had always found its dense prose too abstract. Now, it felt like a beacon. With a determined push, Ilara rose from her moon harp, the instrument's strings seeming to hum a silent encouragement. She retrieved the ancient tome, its pages brittle beneath her touch, smelling faintly of dust and forgotten magic. She remembered her grandmother's words. The truest songs are not just heard, Ilara, they are, I felt. And the greatest silences are not merely an absence of sound, but an absence of being. She began to read, her eyes scanning the faded script, searching for any mention of a whisper or a shard that could cause such a profound stillness. The book spoke of the first song, the primordial melody that had woven Athel into existence, giving form to light, substance to stone, and breath to life. It described the whisper as the living echo of that song, constantly flowing, constantly renewing. And then, hidden within a chapter on forgotten maladies of the spirit, she found it, a cryptic passage describing a void fragment, a discordant shard of anti-creation that sought to unravel the woven reality, to return all to the formless expanse before the first song. When the void fragment pierces the song, silence descends not as peace, but as oblivion. The whisper struggles, its true voice forgotten, until a resonance of pure intent, guided by a heart attuned to Athel's primordial hum, can awaken the song's true self and mend the tear. Where? A resonance of pure intent. A heart attuned to Athel's primordial hum. Elara felt a spark of hope ignite within her. This wasn't just about playing a beautiful tune. It was about understanding the fundamental frequencies of her world and finding a way to resonate with them. But how? The book offered no direct answers, only riddles and ancient prophecies. It did, however, speak of the keepers of the resonant archives, an order of scholars and mystic musicians who had safeguarded the deepest lore of Athel for millennia, dwelling in a hidden sanctuary known as the Lyrium. The Lyrium. Dial, Ninimal, Aste. The Lyrium, dat me, I see Niniwal, I dies, ah. A place of knowledge, of forgotten songs, of echoes that still lingered. It was a perilous journey, far to the west, beyond the whispering peaks and across the murmuring mire, but it was the only path she saw. As the first faint hues of dawn painted the eastern sky, Elara packed a small satchel. Her moon harp was too large and delicate for the journey, but she carefully selected a smaller, more robust travel lute, its wood worn smooth from years of use. She also took a small vial of luminar dew, a precious liquid that glowed softly in the dark, harvested from the rare moon orchids that bloomed only under the twin moons. It wouldn't light her path for long, but its gentle radiance was a comfort. She stepped out of her quiet cottage, nestled in a grove of ancient singing trees. Usually, the grove would greet her with a symphony of rustling leaves and chirping skylarks, their calls weaving intricate patterns. Today, the trees stood mostly silent, their leaves barely stirring, their usual vibrant green muted to a duller shade. The skylarks were absent, their nests empty. A chill, not of temperature but of absence, hung in the air. The shard was already working its insidious magic on the world outside her mind. A pang of fear tightened her chest, but it was quickly overshadowed by a fierce resolve. The whisper needed her. Athel needed her. Her first destination was the nearest village, Oakhaven, where she hoped to gather provisions and, perhaps, a sturdy map. The path to Oakhaven, usually alive with the soft murmur of the Everstream and the distant lowing of Lumina grazers, was eerily quiet. The stream flowed, but its gurgle was flat, devoid of its usual joyful lilt. The Lumina grazers, their coats typically shimmering with a faint internal light, seemed duller, their movements sluggish. Upon reaching Oakhaven, the changes were even more pronounced. The marketplace, usually a riot of color and sound, was subdued. Vendors hawked their wares in hushed tones, their usual boisterous calls replaced by quiet murmurs. The vibrant tapestries that adorned stalls seemed faded, their threads less luminous. Children, usually chasing each other with peals of laughter, played quietly, their games lacking their usual boundless energy. It was as if a dimmer switch had been turned on the world. Elara felt the subtle thrumming of the whisper, now even weaker, a faint pulse beneath the heavy blanket of silence. It was a desperate rhythm, a dying heartbeat. She knew she had to hurry. She bought a sturdy travel cloak, a supply of dried fruits and nuts, and a detailed map of the western reaches, noting the jagged outline of the whispering peaks and the sprawling mist-shrouded expanse of the murmuring mire. The shopkeeper, a kind-faced woman named Lyra, eyed Elara's lute with a wistful expression. "Going far, child?" Lyra asked, her voice softer than usual. "The roads aren't as lively as they once were." Elara offered a small reassuring smile. "To the Lyrium, if the old stories are true." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "The keepers? It's been generations since anyone from Oakhaven has journeyed there. They say the path itself is a test of spirit. But if anyone can find the forgotten songs, it would be a weaver, like your grandmother was. She paused, her gaze lingering on Ilara. A strange silence has fallen upon the world, hasn't it? The songs of the wind, the whispers of the forest, they feel muted, as if the heart of Athel itself has grown weary. I intend to find out why, Ilara replied, her voice firm. And to help it sing again. Oh. With her provision secured and a renewed sense of purpose, Ilara left Oakhaven, heading west. The sun was now high, but its light felt diffused, lacking its usual warmth and brilliance. The sky, a pale, washed-out blue, seemed to reflect the muted state of the world. The path soon led her out of the familiar farmlands and into the foothills of the Whispering Peaks. Here, the landscape began to change, becoming wilder, more untamed. The trees were taller, their branches gnarled and ancient, their leaves a darker, mossier green. The air grew cooler, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and pine. As she ascended, the silence deepened. The wind, which should have whistled through the crags and sung through the tree branches, was barely a sigh. The birds, if any remained, were silent. Even the sound of her own footsteps seemed unnaturally loud in the profound stillness. She found herself walking through a forest of ancient whisper oaks, their mighty trunks spiraling upwards, their branches interwoven like gnarled fingers. Legend, said these trees, were conduits for the whisper, their leaves rustling with the oldest melodies of Athel. But now, they stood like silent sentinels, their majestic presence diminished by the absence of their song. Ilara paused, leaning against a colossal trunk. She gently placed her hand on its rough bark, trying to feel the faint hum of the whisper within it, as her grandmother had taught her. Instead, she felt only a dull, empty thrum, a faint echo of what should have been a vibrant symphony. The tree was struggling just like the whisper itself. She pulled out her travel lute, its smooth wood a comforting presence in her hands. She began to play a simple, yearning melody, a song of comfort and remembrance. The notes, usually bright and clear, seemed to absorb into the thick air, barely carrying. Yet, as she played, she focused her intent, pouring her longing for the whisper's return into each strum, each plucked string. A flicker, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the ancient oak. A single leaf, high above her, rustled, a sound barely audible, yet distinct in the overwhelming silence. It was a tiny response, a fleeting spark of recognition. The whisper, within the tree, was stirring. It was weak, but it was still there, able to respond to a song of true intent. Encouraged, Ilara continued her journey, the Larium her guiding star. The Whispering Peaks loomed ahead, their summits shrouded in an eternal mist. The path grew steeper, winding through narrow passes and across dizzying ridges. She encountered no other travelers, no animals, only the silent, watchful mountains. One evening, as the twin moons began their ascent, casting long, ethereal shadows across the jagged landscape, Ilara found herself at the edge of a vast, desolate plain. This was the entrance to the Murmuring Mire, a place known for its treacherous bogs and strange shifting mists. But more importantly, it was said to be a place where the echoes of Ethel's ancient songs often lingered, faint but discernible to those who knew how to listen. The mire spread before her, a seemingly endless expanse of dark, still water dotted with skeletal trees and islands of tangled roots. A thick, pearlescent mist clung to the surface, swirling and shifting like a living entity. Here, the silence was different. It wasn't the heavy, oppressive stillness of the mountains, but a hollow, echoing quiet, as if the sounds had been swallowed whole, leaving only their spectral traces. This was a place where the whisper's true voice might yet be found, even in its weakened state. The echoes of the first songing had mentioned that the mire was a seam of resonance, where the veil between Athel's present and its deep past was thin, allowing ancient frequencies to bleed through. Perhaps here she could find a clearer echo of the whisper's original uncorrupted melody, a guide for her own song. As she stepped onto the first spongy patch of earth, the ground beneath her felt unstable, threatening to give way. The air was heavy with the scent of decay and damp earth. She moved carefully, her travel lute clutched in one hand, her other hand outstretched, feeling for solid ground. The mist swirled around her, sometimes seeming to coalesce into fleeting, phantom shapes. Were these the lingering echoes of the mire's past? Suddenly, a faint, Almost imperceptible hum reached her ears, not from the outside, but from deep within the mire. It was a low, resonant thrum, like the distant vibration of a colossal string. It was the whisper, struggling but present. And it was calling to her, drawing her deeper into the mist. Elara followed the hum, her intuition guiding her through the treacherous terrain. The mist grew thicker, obscuring her vision, but the whisper's call intensified, becoming a gentle, pulsing beacon in the overwhelming emptiness. It felt like walking into a dream, where the usual rules of reality bent and warped. She walked for what felt like hours, the hum growing steadily stronger, until she found herself on a small island in the heart of the mire. Here, the mist parted slightly, revealing a sight that stole her breath. In the center of the island stood a single ancient tree, unlike any she had ever seen. Its trunk was gnarled and twisted, shimmering with an iridescent, otherworldly light, as if it were woven from moonlight and ancient starlight. Its leaves, a deep, luminous indigo, rustled with a faint, almost silent shimmer. And from its very core emanated the powerful resonant hum, the whisper's heartbeat, clearer and stronger than she had felt it anywhere else. This was no ordinary tree. This was a resonance treeing, a living conduit for the first song, a place where the whisper was still vibrant, though still struggling against the encroaching silence. It was fighting, clinging to life, nurturing a core of pure sound. As Elara approached, a figure emerged from behind the shimmering trunk. It was a woman, ancient and ethereal, her skin like polished jade, her eyes like pools of starlight. Her hair, woven with luminous strands of silver, flowed around her like mist. She wore robes of deep indigo, adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and glow with an inner light. "Welcome, weaver of song." The woman's voice was a soft, melodious hum, like the gentle rustle of the resonance tree's leaves. "I have awaited your coming. I am Lyrea, keeper of the mire's echoes, and the last guardian of this sacred grove. The whisper has sung of your journey." Elara bowed respectfully, a sense of awe washing over her. "Keeper Lyrea, I seek the Lyreum, and answers to the silence that consumes Athel." Lyrea smiled, a profound sadness in her luminous eyes. "The Lyreum holds many truths, child, but not all of them. Here in the heart of the mire, the whisper still remembers its truest self, even as it fades. This resonance tree is its anchor in this realm." She gestured to the shimmering tree. "The shard, the echo of discord, seeks to sever this anchor, to unravel the very fabric of existence. It is not merely silencing Athel, it is erasing it." "How can I fight it?" Elara asked, her voice tinged with desperation. "You have heard the whisper's plea, and that is a start," Lyrea said, her gaze intense. "To mend the song, you must find its counter-harmony, the instrument capable of resonating with its deepest truth. The Lyreum will tell you of the Heartwood Lyre, an ancient artifact said to be able to mend the unraveling. But merely finding it is not enough. You must learn to play it, not just with your hands, but with your very soul." "The Heartwood Lyre," Elara whispered, the name feeling ancient and powerful on her tongue. "Indeed, it is said to be crafted from the very essence of the first song, a living instrument. But its location has been lost for eons, hidden away for its protection. The keepers of the Lyreum will have the lore, the maps, the fragmented clues. They will guide you to its first resting place." Lyrea paused, her gaze fixed on the mire. "But even when you find it, Elara, the lyre will be silent, dormant. It will require a specific spark to awaken it, a spark of true harmony, woven from the threads of Athel's fundamental elements." Fundamental elements? The song of stone, the melody of water, the rhythm of wind, the flame's hum, Lyrea elaborated, her voice a low chant. "These are the primal notes of Athel, the core harmonies that underpin all existence. The shard has distorted these, muted them. To awaken the lyre, you must seek out places where these elemental songs still resonate, however faintly, and bring back a fragment of their pure sound. Weave them into your own song, and only then can you hope to awaken the Heartwood Lyre." Lyrea extended a hand, and a small, smooth stone, shimmering with faint internal patterns like captured starlight, appeared in her palm. "Take this, weaver. It is a resonance stone from the heart of the mire. It will not guide you, but it will hum faintly when you are near a true elemental resonance, a place where the song of stone or the melody of water is still pure. It will be a small comfort, a reminder of the whisper's enduring spirit. Elara carefully took the stone. It was cool and smooth, pulsing with a faint, almost imperceptible warmth against her skin. "Thank you, Keeper Lyrea." "Go now, Elara," Lyrea urged, her eyes again filled with a profound sadness. "The Maya will guide you to the edge of the Whispering Peaks, where the path to the Lyreum begins. Hurry." The silence deepens with each passing moment. And remember, the truest melodies are those sung from the heart, not just the throat. With a final ethereal smile, Lyrea faded back into the shimmering mist, leaving Elara alone on the small island with the magnificent resonance tree. The tree continued its powerful hum, a beacon of hope in the heart of the unraveling world. Elara knew her journey had only just truly begun. She had a destination, the Lyreum. She had a quest to find the Heartwood Lyre. And now, she had a deeper understanding of what was required to rediscover the fundamental elemental songs of Ethel. Clutching the resonance stone, Elara turned and stepped off the island, re-entering the swirling mist. The hum of the resonance tree guided her, a silent compass pointing towards the distant Lyreum. She had to hurry, for the whisper's plea was growing fainter, and the silence of Ethel was growing stronger. The fate of her world, a world woven from song, now rested on her ability to remember its true voice and to sing it back into being. The hum of the resonance tree guided her, a silent compass pointing towards the distant Lyreum. She had to hurry, for the whisper's plea was growing fainter, and the silence of Ethel was growing stronger. The fate of her world, a world woven from song, now rested on her ability to remember its true voice and to sing it back into being. The swirling mist, once a gentle veil, now felt like a shroud, thick and cloying around Elara. It was not just water vapor. It was the physical manifestation of Ethel's fading memory, a fog of forgotten chords and stifled melodies. Each step she took seemed to sink into a deeper silence, a muffling emptiness that pressed against her ears and soul. The vibrant world she knew, the one that sang with every rustle of leaf and glint of sunlight, felt dangerously close to becoming a muted dream. The resonance stone in her hand pulsed with a faint, warm light, a tiny sun in the encroaching gloom. It vibrated with a low, insistent thrum, a counterpoint to the growing silence. It felt like a tether to the world she was trying to save, a direct line to the heart of Ethel. As she walked, sometimes the mist would part for a fleeting moment, revealing ghostly outlines of what once was. The skeletal branch of a tree whose leaves no longer whispered harmonies, the crumbling arch of a bridge over a river that had forgotten its flowing tune. These were echoes, not solid forms, and they quickly dissolved back into the gray. A flicker of light, a fragment of thought brushed against her mind. It was the whisper, faint as a moth's wing, urging her onward. Lyreum, heart song, find the source. The words were barely distinguishable, like notes played on a distant broken harp. Deed what? Elara clutched the resonance stone tighter, pouring her own desperate hope into it, as if her will alone could keep the whisper's fragile flame alight. The journey felt endless, a solitary trek through a world unraveling. Yet guided by the stone's unwavering pulse, she pressed on. Hours bled into a timeless expanse until, finally, a darker, more substantial shape began to coalesce in the mist ahead. It was vast, ancient, and unmistakably man-made, or rather, song-made. The Lyreum. Darimaumawahisai. The Lyreum.ich. As Elara drew closer, the mist thinned slightly, revealing the Lyreum in its desolate grandeur. It was not a single building, but a sprawling complex of interconnected towers and courtyards, all crafted from a pearlescent stone that should have shimmered with inner light. Now, it stood dull and gray, like a forgotten shell. Arches that once soared with intricate, spiraling melodies carved into their very structure were choked with silent vines. Windows, meant to be panes of crystallized harmony, were dark and vacant, reflecting nothing but the oppressive mist. The air around it felt heavy, laden with the weight of untold stories and unsung wisdom. She pushed open a massive, unlatched door that groaned on protesting hinges, its sound a harsh, grating discord in the profound silence. Inside, the Lyreum was a cavernous space, a labyrinth of halls and chambers designed to amplify and preserve Ethel's songs. But no sound met her, save the faint thrum of the resonance stone in her hand, which now seemed to glow a little brighter, as if recognizing its purpose. Shelves, carved from dark, resonant wood, stretched to dizzying heights, once holding crystalline scrolls that pulsed with recorded melodies. Now, they were empty, or held only shattered fragments, their inner light long extinguished. Dust lay thick on every surface, a blanket of forgotten time. Elara ran her fingers over a console, once clearly used to access the Larium's vast archives. Its glowing runic symbols were dark and cold. The silence here was different from the mist outside. It was an active, hungry silence, consuming everything in its path. It felt like a void, where once there had been an ocean of sound. A final, desperate burst of energy emanated from the whisper. A clear, sharp thought that cut through the desolation. The sources, the elemental heart songs. Find them. Ignis, Aqua, Terra, Aura. The names of the elements, vibrant even in their fading, echoed in her mind. The Lyrim holds the maps, the keys. Then the whisper's presence receded further, leaving Elara feeling profoundly alone, but with a clear, albeit daunting, mission. The resonance stone pulsed furiously now, vibrating against her palm. It tugged her towards a central chamber, a vast circular room at the heart of the Larium. In its center stood a magnificent, swirling crystal, taller than Elara herself. It was meant to be the Larium's core, a conduit for all of Ethel's songs. But it was dark, lifeless, a frozen tempest of silence. Around the base of this crystal, however, were 4 smaller pedestals, each bearing a unique symbol. Elara recognized them from ancient tales. A flickering flame for Ignis, fire, a swirling wave for Aqua, water, a rooted tree for Terra, earth, and an ethereal spiral for Aura, air. The resonance stone thrummed most intensely when she held it near the pedestal marked with the flame. As she touched the flame symbol, a faint, almost imperceptible warmth spread from the stone. A tiny, almost invisible shimmer appeared on the ancient console nearby. Hope surged through her. With careful, trembling fingers, Elara traced the outline of a forgotten rune on the console. A single weak light flickered to life, projecting a faint, shimmering image onto the dusty floor. It was a map, a fragment of Ethel, highlighting a region of jagged crimson peaks known as the Cinder Spires, the heartland of elemental fire. The map pulsed with a faint red glow, a ghostly echo of the fire song. It showed not only the geographical location but also a deeper, almost spiritual path, a sequence of melodic cues and harmonic resonances required to access the core of Ignis. It wasn't just a place, it was a state of being, a frequency. The Lyrium, even in its silence, was still trying to help. With renewed purpose, Elara studied the projected map body. The Cinder Spires were far, a journey of many days, perhaps weeks, through increasingly silent lands. But the whisper's plea, now barely a whisper at all, spurred her on. She had to bring the first song back. She had to rekindle Ignis. She stepped out of the Lyrium, the ancient doors creaking shut behind her with a sound that seemed to swallow all hope. The mist was still thick, but now, a faint red glow emanating from the resonance stone seemed to cut through it, a guidepost towards the Cinder Spires. The air grew colder as she traveled, the lush greens of Ethel giving way to barren, cracked earth. The gentle hum of insects, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of birds, all were gone, replaced by a profound, echoing emptiness. The land itself seemed to be holding its breath, waiting. Days blurred into a single, arduous trek. Elara subsisted on the meager rations she had carried, and on the sheer force of her determination. The resonance stone remained her constant companion, its warmth a steady comfort against the growing chill of the silent world. It pulsed rhythmically, a tiny, vibrant heart in the desolation, its red glow intensifying slightly with each step she took towards the source of Ignis. As she drew closer to the Cinder Spires, the landscape transformed dramatically. The cracked earth gave way to obsidian plains, shimmering with black dust. The mist thinned, replaced by a hazy reddish pall that hung in the air, hinting at the dormant power beneath. In the distance, the Cinder Spires rose like jagged teeth against a bruised sky, their peaks glowing with a faint internal crimson light. These were not mere mountains, they were titanic altars, forged in the very fires of creation. The air grew warm, then hot, carrying with it the faint scent of sulfur and ancient stone. Here, even the silence was different. It wasn't empty. It was a heavy, pregnant silence, a suppressed roar. Elara could feel the faint, deep thrumming of the earth beneath her feet, a powerful, rhythmic pulse that was the very heartbeat of Ignis. It was a song, she realized, but one so vast and primal it transcended audible sound, a song of tectonic plates shifting, of molten rock flowing, of the earth's fiery core. The ascent of the cinder spires was treacherous. The ground was unstable, crumbling beneath her feet, and fissures crisscrossed the slopes, emitting plumes of hot, acrid steam. The heat was intense, but it also felt strangely invigorating, a stark contrast to the numbing cold of the silent lands. The resonance stone in her hand was now glowing steadily, a fiery ember, guiding her up a narrow winding path that was barely visible. She reached a high plateau, overlooking a vast caldera. In its center, a deep chasm descended into the earth, pulsating with a deep orange glow. This was the heart of Ignis. The sheer power radiating from it was overwhelming, a raw, untamed force. It was both terrifying and magnificent. The map from the Luraeum had indicated a specific sequence of harmonic resonances. Elara closed her eyes, clutching the resonance stone, and tried to listen to the silence, to hear the echoes of what should be there. The primal thrumming of the chasm filled her senses. It wasn't a melody in the traditional sense, but a rhythm, a cadence of creation and destruction, of transformation. It was the song of the forge, the spark of life, the burning passion within every living thing. She remembered the teachings of the Whispers, of how their voices were meant to channel and amplify Athel's natural harmonies. But this was raw elemental power, far beyond any lullaby or gentle breeze. She took a deep breath, the hot air burning her lungs, and began to sing. Her voice, usually soft and ethereal, was strained, trembling. She tried to mimic the deep, resonant thrumming of the earth, to find its fundamental frequency. It was like trying to hold a roaring bonfire in her cupped hands. The resonant stone grew searingly hot, almost too much to bear, and its fiery glow intensified, casting dancing shadows across her face. At first, nothing happened. Her voice felt small, swallowed by the vastness of the caldera. Doubt gnawed at her. Could she truly channel something so immense? But then, she remembered the Whisper's faint plea, the image of Athel turning silent and gray. She pushed harder, finding a deeper well of courage within herself. She focused not just on the sound, but on the essence of Ignis, the warmth, the light, the life it brought, not just the destructive fire. As she poured her soul into the song, her voice began to resonate, not just outwardly, but inwardly. The resonance stone seemed to fuse with her hand, its heat flowing into her veins. A deep, resonant chord vibrated from her chest, a note that was both her own and something infinitely older and more powerful. And then it happened. From the depths of the chasm, a faint crystalline chime ascended, a counterpoint to her raw, earthy tones. It was the lost melody, the pure heart song of Ignis. It rose, spiraling upwards, intertwining with her voice, weaving itself into a complex, vibrant tapestry of sound. The orange glow in the chasm intensified, blossoming into a brilliant golden-red light that pulsed with rhythmic energy. Small sparks like tiny joyful stars danced out of the chasm, swirling upwards into the reddish haze. Elara's voice grew stronger, clearer, no longer trembling but resonating with newfound power. She was not just mimicking, she was channeling. She was a conduit, allowing the ancient song to flow through her, to re-enter the world. The notes she sang were not just sounds, they were warmth, they were light, they were the very spark of creation. The entire caldera seemed to awaken. The ground beneath her feet began to hum, a deep, contented thrum. The reddish haze above her swirled and brightened, coalescing into a vibrant, fiery aurora that painted the sky in hues of crimson, orange, and gold. The obsidian plains below, once barren, now shimmered with nascent heat, and from the deep fissures, instead of acrid steam, rose plumes of glowing, warm mist that sparkled with golden motes. A tiny, hardy plant, a brilliant crimson lichen, began to unfurl itself from the volcanic rock near her feet, glowing softly. It was the first sign of life she had seen in days that wasn't decaying. The silence, so oppressive for so long, had not entirely vanished, but it had receded, replaced by the profound, comforting symphony of the earth's beating heart. Exhausted but exhilarated, Elara finally let her voice fade, the last notes of the fire song echoing across the caldera before settling into a deep, sustained hum that vibrated through the very air. The resonant stone cooled slightly in her hand, still glowing, but now with a steady, warm amber light that pulsed with the energy of Ignis. She felt profoundly changed, a part of her now attuned to the raw, transformative power of fire. A flicker of the whisper's presence, stronger and clearer than before, brushed against her mind. One song returned. Many more. Elara, you sing Athel awake. The fragmented message filled her with a potent mix of relief and renewed determination. One song. Ignis. But Ethel had 4 fundamental elements, and countless other melodies woven between them. The world was still mostly silent. She looked out at the newly rekindled cinder spires, bathed in the glow of the aurora, and then turned her gaze towards the vast, silent horizon. The resonant stone pulsed, its amber light now tinged with a faint, swirling cerulean, tugging her gently in a new direction. The Lyrium's map had shown 4 symbols, 4 sources. The next one she knew would be Aqua. The call of the Lost Water song was already beginning to stir within the stone, a faint, shimmering echo in the heart of the newly awakened fire. Her journey, the true song of Ethel, had only just begun. The resonant stone pulsed, its amber light now tinged with a faint swirling cerulean, tugging her gently in a new direction. The Lyrium's map had shown 4 symbols, 4 sources. The next one, she knew, would be Aqua. The call of the Lost Water song was already beginning to stir within the stone, a faint, shimmering echo in the heart of the newly awakened fire. Her journey, the true song of Ethel, had only just begun. Elara followed the whisper of the stone, leaving the scorched, yet now regenerating, peaks of the Ember Peaks behind. The air grew cooler with each passing day, the scent of pine needles replaced by the damp, earthy fragrance of moss and ferns. The cerulean glow intensified, drawing her westward, through valleys where mist clung like sleeping clouds and ancient rivers carved their slow, deliberate paths. She trekked through forests where trees wept glistening dew, and the ground was a soft carpet of emerald. Days blurred into a journey of shimmering reflections and the ceaseless murmur of water. Finally, the cerulean light flared, leading her to the edge of an enormous, placid lake. Its surface was so still, it mirrored the sky with perfect fidelity, a flawless sheet of sapphire. But beneath its pristine beauty, Elara felt a subtle discord, a quiet ache that resonated with the stone's gentle thrum. This was the Lake of Whispers, the heart of the water song. On a small rocky islet in the center of the lake, stood a solitary figure. It was a creature of liquid grace with skin like polished mother of pearl and hair that flowed like strands of kelp, shimmering with bioluminescence. Her eyes, deep and knowing, were the color of the deepest ocean trenches. This was Lyra, a nymph of the Lake of Whispers, one of the ancient guardians. You carry the song of fire. Lyra's voice was like the gentle lap of waves against the shore, and a nascent echo of my own. Elara nodded, approaching the water's edge. I seek to reawaken the water song. The resonant stone guides me. Lyra sighed, a sound like a distant cascade. The water song sleeps, burdened by the sorrow of forgotten memories. It flows, but it does not sing. Its music is the heart's true current, the flow of empathy, of healing, of shared joy and sorrow. But too much has been forgotten, too much pain held back, and the song has become stagnant, silent. Elara understood. The whispers weren't just the lake's namesake. They were the collective unspoken grief and loneliness that had settled upon Athel over generations. How do I awaken it? Elara asked, her voice soft. Lyra extended a hand, her fingers long and delicate. You must offer a memory, a true current of your own heart, untainted by fear or regret. You must give of yourself to the water, and let it flow through you, cleansing and renewing. Taking a deep breath, Elara stepped into the cool, crystal-clear water. It embraced her, not with cold, but with a gentle caress. She reached into her heart, seeking a memory that embodied the qualities Lyra spoke of. She thought of her grandfather, of his patient hands teaching her the first rudimentary chords on a salvaged lyre, of his unwavering belief in her, even when she doubted herself. It was a memory of pure, unconditional love and connection. As she held this memory, A soft melody began to form on her lips, a tune of gentle reassurance and quiet strength. It wasn't a song of powerful magic, but of profound empathy. She sang of the joy of creation, the comfort of companionship, the healing balm of shared understanding. As her voice carried across the water, the resonant stone glowed brighter, its cerulean hue deepening, swirling with emerald and silver. The lake responded. Ripples began to spread from her, not from her movements, but from the song itself. The shimmering kelp hair of Lyra seemed to sway in time with the melody. The dormant water song, stirred by Elara's honest offering, began to awaken. A geyser of pure, effervescent water erupted from the center of the lake, reaching towards the sky, catching the sunlight in a million sparkling diamonds. The whispers of sorrow dissolved, replaced by a harmonious chorus of trickling streams, rushing rivers, and the deep, resonant hum of ocean currents. The lake of whispers was no longer burdened, it sang. The cerulean light of the resonant stone flared once more, absorbing the essence of the water song, adding its liquid grace to the fiery core. "You have given the water its voice back," Lyra said, her eyes now sparkling with unshed tears of joy. "Go now, Song Weaver, the currents of the sky await you." The resonant stone, now glowing with the combined amber and cerulean, began to pulse with a new ethereal silver. The Lyraeum's map had shown 4 symbols: fire, aqua, air, and terra. Air, the song of air, was next. Elara bid farewell to Lyra, and the now vibrant lake of whispers, turning her gaze skyward. The silver pulse guided her north, towards the jagged peaks of the Skyfang Mountains, where the air grew thin and clouds seemed to be within reach. The ascent was arduous, a climb through biting winds and treacherous ice. Yet, the stone's insistent hum, like a distant whisper of wind chimes, urged her onward. She climbed for weeks, her muscles aching, her breath clouding in the frigid air. The landscape transformed from lush valleys to barren rock, then to snow-capped giants piercing the heavens. Finally, the silver glow became a brilliant beacon, leading her to the highest peak, a spire of ancient wind-sculpted stone that rose above the clouds. Here, the air was impossibly clear, the sky a vast, endless canvas of sapphire. At the very summit, where the wind howled a ceaseless mournful dirge, sat a creature of magnificent proportions. It was a colossal eagle, its feathers shimmering like spun moonlight, its eyes like twin pools of starlight. Its wings, vast as sails, were folded around it like a cloak, buffeted by the relentless gusts. This was Arian, the Sky Warden, guardian of the air song. "You carry the warmth of fire and the flow of water." Arian's voice was not a sound, but a resonance that vibrated through Elara's very bones, like the deep sigh of the wind through canyons. But the song of the sky remains fragmented. The winds rage without purpose, or fall utterly still in suffocating calm. It needs direction, a guiding breath. Elara shivered, not from cold, but from the sheer power emanating from Arian. "How do I awaken the air song?" "The air song is the breath of connection, the whisper of truth, the freedom of boundless thought," Arian boomed, his starlight eyes fixed on her. "It has been fractured by fear of the unknown, by words unspoken, by the heavy chains of doubt. You must offer a breath of pure, unwavering honesty, a song that carries your deepest truth upon its currents." Elara looked out at the dizzying expanse of sky. To speak her deepest truth, to let it be carried by the wind for all of Athel to hear, it was daunting. She thought of her journey, of her fears and her hopes, of the immense responsibility placed upon her. She thought of the Lyraeum, of her grandfather's legacy, and the silent expectations of a world waiting for its song to return. She closed her eyes, and a melody, light and soaring, began to form within her. It was a song of vulnerability and courage, of the quiet strength found in letting go of pretense. She sang of the fear of failure, the loneliness of her quest, but also of the profound joy in discovery, the wonder of magic, and the unwavering belief that Ethel Ake be healed. It was a song of raw, honest self-acceptance. As her voice, surprisingly strong despite the wind, soared into the sky, the resonant stone pulsed with an incandescent silver light. The constant, chaotic winds around the peak began to change. They swirled, not in a frenzy, but in intricate, graceful patterns, weaving around Elara like invisible dancers. The Sky Warden's feathers began to glow, each one catching the silver light, and he unfurled his mighty wings, sending a gust of pure melodic air across the mountaintop. The air song, once a cacophony of lost voices and aimless currents, coalesced into a harmonious symphony of breezes, gales, and the silent, guiding currents that carry seeds and dreams across continents. The silver light of the resonance stone absorbed its essence, shimmering with the combined hues of amber, cerulean, and pure silver. "You have given the air its voice back, Songweaver," Arion boomed, his voice now a gentle guiding current. "Go now, for the roots of Ethel await your touch." The resonance stone, now a kaleidoscope of amber, cerulean, and silver, began to pulse with a deep, verdant emerald. Terra, the song of earth, was the final element. Elara descended the Skyfang Mountains following the emerald glow, which led her south, towards the ancient primeval forests of the Whispering Woods. The air grew thick with the scent of rich soil and decaying leaves, the sunlight dappled and green beneath a canopy so dense it felt like a living cathedral. The path was overgrown, winding through colossal trees whose roots snaked across the forest floor like slumbering serpents. She walked for weeks through the deepening wilderness, the forest growing older, wilder, with every step. The emerald light became a deep, resonant thrum, guiding her deeper into the heart of the woods, where the trees were so ancient, they seemed to touch the clouds, their bark gnarled and wise. Finally, the emerald beacon flared, leading her to a vast clearing dominated by a single colossal tree, the heartwood, the oldest and largest tree in all of Athel. Its trunk was wider than a village square, its branches spread like a world unto themselves, and its roots delved so deep they were said to touch the very core of Athel. But the heartwood was silent, its leaves a dull, muted green, and the air around it was heavy with a profound, weary stillness. From within the massive trunk, a slow, rustling sound emerged, and a face, ancient and moss-covered, slowly formed. Its eyes were deep hollows filled with the wisdom of centuries, and its lips, like cracked bark, moved with effort. This was Grovefather, the Trent, the ancient guardian of the Earth Song. The warmth of fire, the flow of water, the breath of air. "You bring them all." Grovefather's voice was a low rumble, like stones shifting deep beneath the earth. "But the Earth Song sleeps, its rhythms broken. The roots do not fully reach, the soil hungers, and the cycle of growth falters. It needs grounding, a song of patience and resilience." Elara looked at the massive, dormant tree, feeling the profound age and weariness emanating from it. "How do I awaken the Earth Song, Grovefather?" "The Earth Song is the rhythm of life, the resilience of the ages, the slow, steady hum of connection to all living things," Grovefather rumbled. "It has been silenced by haste, by disregard for the slow cycles, by a forgetting of the deep bonds that nourish. You must offer a seed of unwavering patience, a song that honors the deep, quiet strength of endurance and the promise of future growth." Elara sat at the base of the heartwood, placing her hand on its rough, silent bark. She closed her eyes, reaching deep within herself for the feeling of patience, of quiet waiting, of profound connection to the cycles of life. She thought of the slow turning of the seasons, the gradual erosion of mountains, the silent, relentless push of a sprout breaking through the soil. She remembered her own journey, the many days of walking, the patient learning of each song. A new melody began to emerge, slow and deep, like the pulse of the earth itself. It was a song of roots, of foundations, of the quiet strength that underlies all growth. She sang of the resilience of life, the beauty of decay and rebirth, the interconnectedness of all living things, from the smallest microbe to the grandest tree. Her voice, humble yet unwavering, resonated with the very fabric of the earth. As her song filled the clearing, the resonance stone flared with a deep, vibrant emerald. The heartwood began to stir. A faint green glow emanated from its bark, spreading slowly upwards, revitalizing its ancient leaves. New shoots, impossibly bright, burst forth from its branches. The ground around Elara softened, and new wildflowers, brilliant in their hues, pushed through the soil. Grovefather's eyes, once hollow, now twinkled with emerald light, and a slow, knowing smile spread across his mossy face. The Earth Song, once a weary sigh, now bloomed into a vibrant symphony of rustling leaves, growing roots, the gentle hum of teeming life beneath the soil, and the deep, resonant heartbeat of Athel itself. The emerald light of the resonance stone absorbed its essence, And now, all 4 elemental songs, fire, aqua, air and terra, pulsed within it, a vibrant, swirling vortex of amber, cerulean, silver, and emerald. "You have given the earth its rhythm back," Songweaver, Growfather rumbled, his voice now strong and resonant. "The time has come. Return to the Larium. The heart of Athel waits its true song." Elara's journey back to the Larium was swift, carried by the urgency of the fully awakened resonance stone. It vibrated with a powerful, unified hum, its light a dazzling, ever-changing aurora of colors. The Lyrium, when she finally reached it, seemed to hum in anticipation, its ancient stones glowing faintly. She ascended the spiral staircase, the resonance stone throbbing in her hand, guiding her to the very pinnacle of the tower, to the central chamber where the grand lyre of Athel awaited. This was not merely an instrument. It was the sacred conduit, designed to weave the elemental songs into the true song of Athel. The chamber was bathed in a soft ethereal light filtering through crystal-paned windows. At its center stood the lyre of Athel, grander and more intricate than any she had ever seen. Its frame was carved from a wood that seemed to shimmer with ancient starlight, its strings spun from threads of pure magic. But it was silent, dormant, awaiting its purpose. Elara approached the lyre, her heart beating with a mixture of awe and trepidation. The resonance stone pulsed wildly, urging her forward. She understood now. The individual songs were powerful, but fragmented. Athel needed them united, balanced, woven into a single harmonious tapestry to truly thrive. The loss of the true song had caused the gradual imbalance, the erratic weather, the barren lands, the stagnant waters, the lifeless fires. It was not just magic that was missing, but the very essence of harmony. She placed the resonance stone gently into a circular indentation in the lyre's soundboard. With a soft click, it settled into place, its vibrant light flowing into the instrument. The lyre began to hum, a deep, resonant chord that echoed through the chamber, vibrating through Elara's very soul. She reached out, her fingers trembling slightly, and touched the strings. They were warm beneath her touch, alive. The elemental songs, now held within the lyre, surged through her, a chorus of fire, water, air, and earth. She didn't consciously choose a melody. The song flowed through her, a culmination of her journey, her trials, her discoveries. Her fingers danced across the strings, weaving the amber warmth of fire with the cerulean flow of water, the silver breath of air with the emerald depth of earth. The lyre sang, not with individual notes, but with the very voice of Athel. It was a melody of balance and interconnectedness, of the raw power of nature brought into perfect harmony. The chamber filled with light, not just from the lyre, but from the very air itself. Outside the lyrium, Elara could feel the true song spreading across Athel like a gentle wave. The sky above the tower shimmered, and the aurora, once distant and fading, descended, embracing the lyrium in a dazzling, swirling curtain of colors. She saw it in her mind's eye, the ember peaks rekindling with a soft, steady glow, the lake of whispers shimmering with renewed vitality, its waters healing and cleansing, the sky-fang mountains breathing with pure, purposeful currents, the heartwood stretching its revitalized branches, its roots deepening, nourishing all life. The barren lands began to bloom. The chaotic storms softened into refreshing rains, and a profound sense of peace settled over the land. Elara played until the song resonated, not just through the lyrium, but through every fiber of Athel, and through every cell of her own being. She was no longer just a song weaver, she was the heart of Athel's song, a conduit for its very life force. When the final resonant chord faded, leaving a warm, vibrant silence in its wake, Elara slowly opened her eyes. The resonance stone, now fully integrated into the lyre, glowed with a steady, multi-hued light, a permanent beacon of Athel's restored harmony. She looked out from the pinnacle of the lyrium. The aurora was not just a light show, it was a living, breathing veil of magic, a visible manifestation of the true song, stretching across the entire sky of Athel, protecting and nourishing it. The world below sparkled with renewed life, vibrant and whole. Elara knew her journey was complete, yet in a way, it had just begun. Her purpose was not merely to awaken the songs, but to be their keeper, to ensure their harmony endured. She was no longer a lonely girl on a quest, but a guardian deeply connected to the pulse of Athel. With a soft smile, Elara turned from the window, her heart full. The Lyrium, once a silent monument to a forgotten past, was now a vibrant heart of magic, and she, the song weaver, was its pulse. Ethel was whole again, its true song singing through every leaf, every drop of water, every breath of wind, and every flicker of flame. The magic had returned, not as a whisper, but as a lullaby, promising wonder and harmony for all the ages to come. And as the gentle light of the aurora bathed the world, Elara knew that deep within its vibrant glow, Ethel was finally, truly, awake.